Powered by Righteous Media.
Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to episode 371. It is Tuesday, November 11th. That means it is Veterans Day. So happy Veterans Day to everyone. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. It is Veterans Day. That is always especially important on this show. And we've got a great special Veterans Day show coming up. Kristen Rouse is here. My friend, my partner in veterans advocacy for decades, a human inspiration machine, a person that I always look to be a conscience for America. She is here with us, and the news just keeps on coming. The shutdown is ending, but not quite yet. It looks like the House is going to vote tomorrow on Wednesday, we hope, and things are still being screwed up. The American military hasn't struck any boats in the Caribbean today yet, but they're doing them almost daily, so there might be a strike that is, of course, unauthorized by the time you hear this or see this. Airports are still getting screwed up. The New York Giants have finally fired their failed head coach, Brian Daboll, and some Democrats are actually talking about firing Chuck Schumer. It is cold as hell here in New York City, but it is Veterans Day, and hopefully that will bring warmth to your heart. And now is most definitely a time to stay vigilant. Helping us stay vigilant on this Veterans Day, a person that I love, that I respect, that I admire, that I look to for advice and mentorship and insight. One of the toughest, smartest human beings I know. The great and powerful Kristen Rouse is here on Independent Americans. Welcome back, my friend.
Thanks, Paul. Happy Veterans Day to you.
Happy Veterans Day to you. Folks who don't know, Kristen is an Army vet, a legendary veterans advocate. We served together on the IAVA board for a long time. You're the founder of the New York City Veterans Alliance. You're a parent. You're kind of a fixture in your Brooklyn community, and folks may have seen you in media and in writing. How the hell are you, my friend? I always ask everyone, but I want to ask you especially, where are you and how the hell are you?
It's a great day. I mean, Veterans Day it's always a great day. It's a great day of celebration. I was out at the Veterans Day Parade this morning. Today is a day off of schools for everybody here, and I was able to take my son to the New York City Veterans Day Parade. And like you said, it's a cold one. We saw some snow flurries. The little guy was very excited about that, and started out today having breakfast with the group of veterans at the IHOP over on 14th Street. Thank you, IHOP, for offering us free breakfast menu. So we had the biggest table going in the IHOP, and the waiter took care of us. We took care of him. Really appreciate them. We had a great time. Met some new friends one of whom turned out to be on the same deployment that I was on in 2012, and talked about things we liked, things we didn't like. And that's the magic of meeting up with veterans, is you can instantly connect, especially if you have, some of those common threads together. It's a great day. It's a great day.
Love that way you frame it, because you've helped me understand this. And I think for me, it's about the power of community, right? I've been saying this all week. It's kind of like a combination of a birthday, July 4th, and homecoming. And I've been encouraging people to come out, because you never know who you're going to run into. I was at the parade also. Folks can see some of my photos and videos from there. It was cold as shit. Like, we've done this many, many times, you and I together. This one was really cold. And at one point I dipped in to get something to eat, and I came out, and this guy came up to me and just hugged me. And he's like, "I love you, man." He's like, "You're a vet. I'm a vet. I love you. And I'm so happy to be out here. I'm going over to the parade." And there's a lot of love, like welcoming, support, like people being seen and feeling like, that they've been alone a lot. And this is the one day where they know they're going to be around people that they have some kind of connection with. And we have that like secret code with like the boots or the hat or the patch on the jacket, right? Like, we all know, you can kind of see that veterans code. But the IHOP thing is so great, because like, that's like, there's a lot of parades, a lot of DC stuff. But when you texted me and invited me, and thank you for the generous invitation, I'm like, the subtext of Veterans Day is that we all know that, like, there's free shit everywhere. Like, Bloomin' Onion maybe was like the first one, right? But now it's IHOP, and it's kind of like a joking list of like all the places you can get free shit, but it also ends up becoming like these little like veterans halls, right? Like people are going to IHOP today. If you go to IHOP today, you're probably going to see another veteran, and that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it creates community kind of instantly. There was one year after the parade, all of it, like, it's a wonderful thing to not be organizing a group in the parade. So like that's part of like the like so it's like I can actually enjoy it for what it is and like see people in the street and say hello and and just sort of mix and mingle in a way that like you can't when you're actually like running a big group that has to move in the parade, right? So, so to be on the sidelines or like, hey, let's just meet for breakfast because I never did that one before. But there was one year after we did the whole parade where, I think we had actually done a reception afterward for a bunch of veterans, and then the reception was done. We cleaned it up, took out the trash, did all this, and then we headed to Times Square to the Applebee's, which was just slam packed with veterans, and like it was kind of a joke. It was kind of funny, but also like how often do you get to be in a whole restaurant full of veterans, and we're all getting our free whatever off the menu? I mean, like that's a lovely thing. I mean, like I will never poo-poo the corporate giveaways, like because it's nice. It's nice for the folks who were able to take advantage of it, and appreciate it. It's a fun, funny thing, especially in New York where we just have so many of us and we can just sort of take over places. It's a beautiful thing.
And it's also, I think, importantly, an on ramp, right? It's not so formal. You don't have to sign up and you don't have to register and get vetted and you don't have to show up at a certain time. And I think that's kind of like the next generation way of organizing. And I'm trying to remove barriers of entry for people. And I've been telling folks on every media appearance, come on out, just come out. You're going to run into somebody. You might meet somebody new. You might meet a Tuskegee airman or someone who served in Vietnam that you can
Yeah,
learn something from. It's
totally.
kind of like a big mobile history lesson too, right? And that part of it is really cool. But I do think it's really special because people need to know that there are easy ways to get involved, right? Without formally signing up and joining a protest or something else. Protests have been happening a lot. And some folks, frankly, don't want to go to a protest. And this is a much more accessible way for people to get connected, right?
Totally. And for me, everybody has their different feelings. And in Veterans Day, it's about us. And if you're a veteran and you have conflicted feelings about Veterans Day, that's fine. Like celebrate Veterans Day. It's about you and however you choose to mark the day. And happy Veterans Day to everybody who's ever put on the uniform. But for me, it feels like I can set aside all current events, politics, and really connect with people just on that veteran side. We served in these ways together. We've served our veterans community in these different ways, and sort of in connecting just based on that common value. What the IVA gala like used to be for me certainly was like a coming together after, like, let's say, a really raucous election day. Like the gala would be sort of a place where we could say, like, let's focus on country, let's focus on patriotism and what that really means to us and what service means to us and what unites us. And it's something that it's easy to say that value, but I feel like veterans in this way do the value, and in that coming together, in that finding common ground and really having those conversations of connection. And it doesn't have to be like in order to bridge the divide. I mean, it's just connecting with people who live in New York City, or cheering the Vietnam veterans, or screaming for the World War II veterans that are still with us. And just appreciating. I think the older that we get, the more I appreciate the aging veterans, because it's like, oh, that's the future, because like we're all getting older, right? And so it just I'm feeling it just more deeply, I think, with each passing year, and also as we're losing more folks. I know we could list a ton of people, from the Vietnam generation and certainly from the World War II generation who just aren't with us anymore because we all have an expiration date.
That's a perfect point to pause on. I mean, we always talk about the top topic, the thing where I say you need to have your attention focused. Often, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Today's top topic should be pretty straightforward. It is Veterans Day. But I also want to go a step deeper with my friend Kristen because you're such a powerful organizer. You've been working so hard for so many years, but you also understand all the complexities. We talk about New York City, but we've been to rural areas. There's stuff happening in Montana and in Maine and in Arkansas. And we've been with veterans and been at events all across this country. We've been in the White House together with Republicans and Democrats fighting for veteran stuff. But there's two things I want to pull apart about this Veterans Day. Every Veterans Day is different. But this year, I kind of feel like the energy is a little lower and it's colder. The political atmosphere is much more divisive. I think some people are afraid to go out into crowds, right? My wife even said it as I was leaving today. She's like, be careful out there, right? You never know when there's going to be some kind of a crazy shooting or thing. But there's also the reality that veterans aren't front and center anymore. The Vietnam veterans always warned us that this day would come when you'll be in the rearview mirror. There'll be a new generation of folks. They won't care as much. And, some of the grandstands were empty. There are other stories happening, and that's important. The shutdown is happening, and that's important. But I feel like we may have kind of crested in terms of the overall visibility and support from the public. And philanthropy is reflecting that. Corporate philanthropy is reflecting that. And in part, some of that has to do with the Trump administration, I think, which has kind of politicized the military in a way where it feels like a political statement, even for some folks. I want to talk about that maybe first and ask you, how does this Veterans Day feel different? And what do you want people to take away from the 2025 one in particular?
You're right, it does feel different. And, I don't know if the feeling was like at the parade but it's different every year. But the further we get away from sort of the end of and, uh, and we, you were part of talking about how conflicts were forgotten even as they were happening. Like I remember being deployed in Afghanistan in 2006 and getting, I got postcards asking me how it was in Iraq. Like it took a while for that one to get on the map, right? But and so America has a tendency for better, for worse and for better in some ways to forget the conflicts. But I think there is a different feel in a way where military uniforms are being seen in ways in America being used against our fellow Americans in ways that definitely bring up a lot of complicated feelings for a lot of people, and maybe something that folks who reluctantly celebrated veterans maybe just they're backing away a little bit more, or maybe I think that there's just a lot more there's a lot more complication, I
Yeah,
think.
and I think on a very basic level, I don't have the actual longitudinal data, but we're less popular than we used to be. Every institution in America seems to be less popular than it used to be, but that now includes the military. I think some of that has to do with the fact that whether people say it out loud or not, they're scared of our military now and the National Guard. Some folks confuse ICE with the military, or they consider the police department an extension of the military. But I think that and the false assumption that the military all supports Trump, right? Or that everybody in the military is one political persuasion or another, especially now. I think many folks who are far away from it think it's all, right-wing Republicans who love Pete Hegseth, right? And it's much more complicated than that. But I do think our popularity is suffering, and that's been a political win for Trump's agenda, but a loss, I think, for our military. And then also our numbers are just dropping, right? We have this tectonic shift in demographics where so many World War II veterans, so many Korean War veterans, and now Vietnam veterans are right behind them in a very alarming kind of way. But let me ask you the second part of what I think is really important about today, how we teach our children through it. And every time I go to anything, I see it through my 10 and 6-year-old boys. And I use it as a teaching tool. There was like a chrome Lamborghini, but then there was like a deuce and a half, and there are the bagpipes. And you can use it as a really powerful teaching tool for your kids and just getting them to understand how much bigger the world is beyond themselves. And I think parades are useful for that. In the same way, memorials are useful for that. And I think folks forget that the parades are almost not about us. They're about the next generation and about the people who don't know. But can you talk about on a personal level? You took your young son there. You're now seeing the Veterans Parade through his eyes. What's your takeaway? How is that different for you?
I want him to feel connected to the line of those who step up to serve America. And service to America doesn't always have to take on a military uniform, but it's a very clear representation of that ethos, right? And it's important to me for him to be, in rooms where there's World War II veterans, where there's Vietnam veterans, because again, like we all have an expiration date, and even if he doesn't, he's still too young to really understand so much of what this means, but so that he can look back at pictures and say like, oh, I was there for this, this moment in history, and as this part of our continuing history, I mean, as a country, because so much of how we tell our nation's history is through military conflicts and service, and to look generationally at that. We are but one generation of warfighters, right? And there will be more. I don't want there to be more behind us, but there will be. And because they are there now in these evolving, conflicts in these different ways, or the other ways that we're, reaching across the planet, with our military forces, to train other countries' militaries and so on. But to be part of the thread, the moment that we're in, the generation that I'm in, and to pass down what it means to me to him. And that doesn't mean that he needs to serve in the military, but it does mean that he needs to value service to our country, and to see himself as part of this line of serving and preserving this nation.
And to see you in a different light, right? I think my kids, often forget that I was in the military, and to see someone like you that's been such a powerful role model, you've broken so much ground, you've been so courageous, you've been so personally powerfully vulnerable. We talk a lot about powerful vulnerability on this show. I don't know anybody who's been more powerfully vulnerable than you, Kristen. So many issues, from Afghan refugees to mental health to equality to women's issues, just the entire spectrum, and you still continue to serve in a quiet and humble way. And I think that that is such a powerful thing for kids to see. And you've been so effective at being someone who still serves, and you're an activist, right? And that's such an important part of this, that people understand that veterans are maybe some of the most important activists in this country. So I am super grateful for you. I want you to know, as a friend, and I love you, and I see you out there fighting, and it has inspired me so many times when I feel like my tank is empty. You're one of the people I look to that really keeps me going.
And likewise, I mean, you've done so much to empower our community, to empower me, to give us a voice. And I mean, it's just been an absolute honor to get to know you and work with you these last 10, 15, how long has it been?
100 years? It feels like 100 years, right?
With this generation, of like the most of the post 9/11 era, and such as it has been, has is much credited to you. So the advocacy. So thank you so much for all
It's
you've
a
done.
team game. It's a team game, and it's a challenging one because we lose members of our team every year, but then we also see them excelling in so many roles. And I'm not a fan, but our vice president is now a post 9/11 veteran. Our secretary of defense is a post 9/11 veteran, but we've also got the governor of Maryland, the governor of New Jersey now, right? This is happening, and there are cohorts, and that's exciting. I want to pause there, and usually we do a below the radar segment. I'm going to do that and do it a little bit different today. Chris is going to play a couple of segments from a conversation I had on C-SPAN's Washington Journal, which I think is an important media hit because it's a conversation and we take calls, and you never know what the fuck is going to happen, which is always wild. So we're going to pause here for something I think is below the radar, which is C-SPAN and this Veterans Day conversation that I've been having almost annually. And I'm going to throw to Chris and some of that now.
CEO and founder of Independent Veterans of America. He's joining us now. Mr. Rieckhoff, thanks for your time.
Good morning, Pedro. Happy Veterans Day to you and to everyone watching and listening around the country and around the globe.
I was going to ask you to start off, how does this Veterans Day, if there are any differences this Veterans Day that you've seen than the past?
I think every Veterans Day is different, so I'm glad you asked that. I mean, first of all, I just want to start by saying it's a celebratory day. It's a day where we can all come together as Americans and recognize all the great men and women who stepped up for every generation. It's a little cold here in New York. I'm in a remote TV truck, but I know it's a lot easier than being in a cold Humvee overseas or being in the hot desert like so many of our men and women have been doing for decades and generations. And I think, this year especially, that celebratory feeling, I always describe it, Pedro, kind of as a combination between homecoming, July 4th, and a birthday party. but it's really about community and connection. It's about bringing together all our veterans and their families and the people who care about them really as one country. And I think that's especially important now because in my life, at least, I've never seen our country more divided. There aren't too many common places and common ways we all come together as Americans. And Veterans Day should be a day where that is really prioritized, where it's sacred, where maybe we can put the political guns aside, our political differences to the wayside, and we could come together and honor these men and women and honor each other in the spirit of America and the values that those veterans all represent. And especially right now, I think, so many folks are divided between Republicans and Democrats. And the truth is, most veterans are independent and somewhere in the middle. And maybe we can be a connective tissue or at least a pause on this one day to bring this great country together, no matter what your political background or who you voted for.
And does that even take place as things that we've been talking about, the shutdown, particularly as it does impact veterans and other related issues? Can veterans, do you think, still rise above that, or at least those you represent?
They can. They're going to do it, in Veterans Day parades and at elementary schools and at breakfasts all around the country today. I think you're going to see them as an example. And that's really what I'd encourage folks to think about, especially if you are a veteran. Today is a day to kind of wear your veteran status with pride and also to be a teacher, to explain to people what it's like to put, your country over your party, to put your own personal well-being to the side in support of a mission. And when you see those veterans walking around or you see them on television or you see them online, I think they can be a true north, an inspiration, and a powerful reminder that veterans are really not just at the tip of the spear in our wars, but also in our policy and in our politics. When the shutdown happened, as it continues, roughly 45% of federal workers are veterans. So that includes all the civilian workers at the Pentagon who are standing guard for our national security, who served in uniform and wanted to continue to serve. Those folks have been really hard hit. Air traffic controllers, they're folks that often learn those skills in the military. So many folks all across our federal government and through its programs have been dramatically impacted, but veterans are especially hard hit. And I think that should be kind of a mirror into our society. When you think about what the Republicans or the Democrats are saying, I think what you should be listening to, maybe most of all, is what are the veterans saying? Because they're more than a canary in the coal mine. They're kind of the soul of our country, and they represent our values. And if veterans are being left out hungry, if veterans are being cut from their jobs, if veterans don't have the benefits they need, then I think that should be a wake-up call for all Americans about how our priorities might be out of whack.
Mr. Rieckhoff, one of the things we saw emerge from the Senate yesterday was this appropriations bill that specifically dealt with military issues, $153 billion plus for discretionary funding for the VA, defense programs, $263 billion for veterans benefits. When you see figures like that, put that in perspective to those that you represent. How does that type of money help those you represent?
Well, for some of them, it's life and death. That can be, disability benefits. It can be a housing allowance if you're in the military. I think it's important to take a step back and understand dining facilities on military bases have been closed during the shutdown. They were not able to feed our troops in the same way we normally did. So that should be kind of a clarifying moment for folks. Yes, there's a trickle-down effect across the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs especially, and those are kind of the two prongs that impact veterans most directly. But I think if you think about it, we have veterans who are on food stamps, who are dependent on food stamps. They've been adversely affected. You have veterans who are standing guard at the Pentagon who haven't gotten paid for a month, and their active-duty military compatriots right next to them have been getting paid. So I think that, that's a good thing to prioritize. But I also think this shutdown was different because there wasn't an exception created for military folks. Usually the parties come together and say, you know what, we're going to continue this shutdown. We may disagree, but let's make sure our troops get paid. That didn't happen this time. And I think that's a real insight into how our politics have gotten even more toxic, even more damaging, and most directly, take a big step back, it impacts our national security. When our troops don't know if they're getting paid, if our military families don't have stability, that weakens morale, and that has our enemies celebrating. So I think we've gotten caught in a lot of infighting over the last couple weeks around the shutdown, and we forget to step back and think, how would Vladimir Putin look at this? And I think Vladimir Putin and our enemies around the globe would be happy to see our military and our veterans community especially hard hit, weakened, and the morale damage. They're going to step up. They always do. And maybe that's another example for this country, especially on today. But they shouldn't have to, especially in times like this when we really need unity. We really need to find ways to come together and move forward. I think veterans can be kind of a North Star for our country. They always are, but especially on a day like today, a week after an election, and as we're coming out of this, hopefully out of the shutdown.
Paul Rieckhoff joining us. And if you want to ask him questions, to Democrats 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, Independents 202-748-8002. And if you are active or former military and you want to hear from Paul Rieckhoff, call that line, 202-748-8003. And you can also use that same line if you want to text us your thoughts this morning. Again, another shot of the World War II memorial there in Washington, D.C. Mr. Rieckhoff, about your organization, what's the central goal?
To try to provide leadership for America that everybody's looking for. Most of America is politically homeless. Almost 50% of Americans now are unaffiliated or politically independent. That's how it started. George Washington was our last independent president, and he warned us against the dangers of the party. And if there's ever been a time that's a more glaring example of how damaging the parties can be, it's the last couple of weeks. And we've found that a lot of veterans want to serve. They want to run for office. They want to give back to their community, but they don't want to take a partisan path. And the truth is the Republican Party has gone very far to the right. The Democratic Party has gone very far to the left. And most veterans especially are caught in the middle. So we created Independent Veterans of America with a great group of advisors, former military, independent folks who want to create the infrastructure, the support to recruit, support, and elect veterans for public office, from U.S. Senate all the way down to school board. We had two guys elected last week in Connecticut, as an example. Granby, Connecticut, a young man who stepped up to serve his community on the school board. He's a veteran. He'd never been in politics before. He had a very partisan school board, but he wanted to step forward and provide his leadership. He didn't want to get into politics, but he felt like this moment required it. And we're seeing thousands of veterans like that all across the country who want to run for office but don't want to pick a partisan side. They want to put country first. But the truth is it's hard to run as an independent. So we want to give them the ammunition, the backup, the training, the support from all Americans to get in there and try to fix things, move things forward, take a practical approach, a more moderate approach, and put country first rather than a political party.
How does your organization field candidates?
We got a website with an open call. We say, look, if you want to serve your country and continue to serve, we want you. You can go to independentveteransofamerica.org. You can fill out the intake form. We'll verify your status. If you don't know what you're eligible to run for, we can help you. And it's really important to emphasize, Pedro, we're starting local. We need people for, county seats, for city seats, for school boards. If you've never run before, your local school board might be the place to start. But we're also supporting candidates all the way up to the Senate. There are so far 4 independent veterans who've declared that they're running for the U.S. Senate next year, led by Dan Osborne in Nebraska, Ty Pickens in Kentucky, Todd Achilles in Idaho, Brian Bangs in South Dakota. This is just the start. These are the 4 that have put their hands up for this coming year who want to be the first true independents elected to the Senate, because we believe if you have, especially an independent veteran in the Senate, it can be a fulcrum. It can show that success is possible, and they can be a true moderating force to hopefully be a bridge between Republicans and Democrats and hold them all accountable. Veterans have been doing that for decades and generations. George Washington was the first politician who put down his uniform and continued to serve, and that's really what it's all about. We're looking for servant leaders who are willing to step up and answer this call, especially in this moment, who care about national security, who want to take care of our veterans, but most of all can be role models and leaders with integrity and values. That is what our country is looking for. They're looking for leaders, and they're looking for fighters, and we're trying to recruit them and get them elected, Pedro.
Sorry about that before. I want to say Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans and Mr. Rieckhoff. So thank you for what you do. Just real quick, so just want to fly on the radar a little bit. I'm Fire Service, Army, and U.S. Public Health Service, retired after 25 total years, and literally missed a pension payment on the 1st because of the shutdown. Now, we all know how sacred pensions are, right? They're held up as really sort of bulletproof. You'll never not miss a pension, right? Well, turns out that the U.S. Public Health Service and NOAA sees the pension through separate appropriations, not through the Military Retirement Fund, which is, the MRF covers the armed forces, and so they're never going to miss a payment, essentially. Meanwhile, the U.S. Public Health Service and NOAA, even a guy like me that was Army, prior to that, and there are many inter-service transfers from the armed forces to the U.S. Public Health Service. Well, those folks missed a pension payment, and never in my career have I ever heard of a pension payment being missed for anyone that's ever worn the uniform. Over.
That's Andrew there,
Yeah,
Mr.
I think
Rieckhoff.
that's where the rubber meets the road. Like, congratulations, America. This is where we are, where folks are not getting their pension payments. I talked to a number of folks who were in the reserve, the Army Reserve this weekend, who had their trainings canceled. The deep cuts that we're making into our national structure of security, but also into people. These are real people's lives, and they are the collateral damage of this shutdown. And I think, look, pox on all houses here. I mean, I think that the president and Congress and the Democrats should have come to an agreement. But the truth is that the Democrats, did hold out here, and I hope that they would come to the table and find a way to move it forward, and they didn't. And I think that there is a high political price to be paid, especially around our national security and our veterans. I have been a critic of any shutdown. I was vocal when the Republicans shut down the government. I stood outside the World War II Memorial with other veteran service groups, and I'm doing the same now when Democrats shut down the government. Shutdowns hurt everyone, and there are a lot of folks who want to shut down, but our pensioners don't want to shut down, our reservists don't want to shut down, and our civilian veterans especially don't want to shut down. It's just so stupid and unnecessary. It's a self-inflicted gunshot wound on our democracy that we don't need, especially right now when our enemies are happy to see us tear each other apart.
Homer joins us from Louisiana, a Vietnam veteran. Hello.
Yes, I just want to express my opinion about I think that we ought to. Well, I ain't talking about bringing back no draft or nothing like that, but for discipline wise, I think there will be a average boy of 13th grade, and because we don't have enough esprit de corps anymore, and thank you for letting me express myself.
Okay, Homer in Louisiana. Mr. Rieckhoff.
Yeah, thank you, Homer. I think he's getting to a core point. I mean, a lot of the connective tissue that has existed for generations across this country is gone. More Americans feel isolated, feel lonely, feel disconnected. Folks aren't, especially young men and young women, aren't going to religious services as much. They're not playing sports as much. They're not involved in clubs and groups. And the military service was a connective tissue that forced everybody to figure out a way to work together. I don't support a draft unless there's a war. I think that's an important question to ask everyone who's banging on the drums right now, for example, for more war with Venezuela. Are they willing to ask people to serve, or is it going to be the rise of a new generation of chicken hawks who are happy to send other people's kids to fight and die? I think national service would be a good thing. The all-volunteer military has been tremendous for our fighting force. We have the greatest military the world has ever seen. But it might not be the best thing for our democracy, because you've got a small percentage of people, less than 0.5%, who continue to serve over and over again, and the rest of the country largely lives life uninterrupted when it comes to public service. So I'm all for efforts to create national public service. It doesn't have to just be the military. It can be City Corps, Peace Corps, Marine Corps. It can be all of them together. I think some brave politicians have started to float this issue, but I think we're ultimately going to need presidential leadership, and we're going to need Congress to take it on and recognize it's not just about creating soldiers and Marines and service members. It's about creating a stronger America, a place where we all have shared values, we all have a common experience, and we have friendships. Everybody who's watching today who's a veteran or knows a veteran knows that you come out of the military with friendships with people from all different backgrounds, all across this great country. I have friends in almost 50 states that I've met in the military, and that's been missing, especially in this latest generation. And I think we need brave politicians and more Americans to step forward and say they want something different.
Let's hear from Earl. Earl in Georgia, a veteran. Earl, good morning. Happy Veterans Day. You're on with our guest. Go ahead.
Good morning. How you doing, my brother? Hello,
sir.
I said something. It's one thing that I really, when I came back from over to Saudi Arabia, people looked at soldiers as, like they was nothing. People don't realize that when you are a soldier, you out there on that front line, you back and resting. And I think that the soldiers should be better taken care of, because we the one that's out there on that front line, allowing them to rest at night, to allow them to sleep at nighttime. And there's so many call in and talking about the military and all the right here. Why don't they just see what you and I have seen? And they will understand how we feel and what we feel. Okay, last thing I want to say, it's like today. I got to go to work on Veterans Day. I was out there talking to kids and stuff, let them know, hey, I was glad to serve, and I will serve again right now. I'm 68 years old, and if I get called to go, my rucksack, my pack is ready to go right now. Thank you, my brother. God bless you. I love you, and I feel your pain.
That is Earl in Georgia.
Thank you, Earl. I think you're what it's all about. You're the kind of leader that we need now more than ever. And I think you touched on something that is really, really important. I want to encourage veterans, especially who are watching, to come on out today. Come on out of your house or your job. You might have to, come out after a double shift. But today's the day to remember you're not alone. There is a community out there that understands you, that respects you, that loves you, and that needs you. Especially to our older veterans that sometimes feel forgotten. We need you to mentor and support the next generation, not just the veterans, but also young people. They need your example. And there's been a lot of reason to pull back from getting out in the streets or coming out in your community. There's been so much politics everywhere, and people feel like they sometimes need to pull back and just watch another football game. And I understand that. I feel the same way oftentimes. But Veterans Day is a day to come home to your community. And if you can't do it in person in your town or in your city, you can do it online. There's a lot of virtual town halls and virtual veterans meetings that are happening, or you can go to any one of the very high number of places that has free food today, and you can go in and get a free meal, and you'll run into other veterans. But today especially, come on out. It's not just about you. It's about continuing to serve. We need you now, especially in these divisive times in America where a lot of folks are frankly scared. They're worried. They don't know what's next. They need your leadership. They need your strength. And maybe most of all, they need your example.
Something good, oh, something sweet. Feel the fire, feel the
And we're going to come back and finish with Kristen on something good. You are something good. I think you are something great. I think that you've been instrumental in creating statues for other veterans. The Corbin VA hospital here in New York is named after a female veteran who broke ground. I think there should be a Kristen Rouse statue one day, maybe
Yes.
near the Gowanus Canal. But you are something good. And I'm going to start and then come to you. Something good tonight on this Veterans Day. If you're getting this in time, 9 p.m. Eastern, I am hosting an Independent Veterans of America town hall. We're going to celebrate the veterans community. All are welcome. If you haven't been anything today on Veterans Day and you want to join, come on and sign up. It'll be linked in the show notes and at Independent Veterans of America. But we're going to hear from 2 veterans that won local elections last week. And we're going to hear from 4 independent veterans who are running for Senate, guys who've been guests on this show. Brian Bangs in South Dakota, Ty Pickens in Mississippi, Todd Achilles from South Dakota, and Dan Osborne from Nebraska. Did I get them all? My brain is kind of mushed. But they're all coming, and lots of other folks. So we invite you to come. It's going to be positive. It's only 1 hour on Zoom. It's free, and all are welcome. And I think it's going to end our Veterans Day with some positivity and give you hope for the future because we're recruiting. We want to recruit people to run for office. And if that includes you or someone you know, come check us out or just come and support those who are doing it. That's something special on Veterans Day and something good. All right, Kristen, over to you on this Veterans Day 2025. What's something good?
Something great for me is, so I founded New York City Veterans Alliance. It was wonderful work for the time that we did it. It was also really hard and couldn't continue. But something great is that part of my IHOP breakfast was my good friend Michael Matos, who founded 5 Borough Veterans, which is the organization that's going to be carrying forward the advocacy that New York City Veterans Alliance did. I'm really proud of him, proud to advise him. If you're local in New York City, look up 5 Borough Veterans, sign up, become a part. If you are a veteran who wants to make a difference wherever you are locally, there's so much work to be done at the local level and that you can do. If you want ideas on what you can be doing at your local level, look up 5 Borough Veterans because that can be a great inspiration for whatever you're looking to do and whatever you're looking to lead. So please connect, whether you live in New York City or whether you live anywhere in the country, because there's a lot of work that all of us can be doing right where we are.
I love that. It's so true. I mean, this wonderful tree that is the veterans movement has so many branches that have come out of it. And we stand on the backs of so many that came before us. And I miss a lot of those guys and gals, especially around Veterans Day, but I know that carries on. But the local level is where it's at. Rural areas, urban areas, doesn't matter where you are, check it out. And if it's not there, you can create it. Veterans make shit happen. We adapt, improvise, and overcome, and we see it all the time. Kristen, I just want to celebrate you always. I hope you'll come back more often now that we're daily. But you represent, I think, the best of what this country is all about. I hope you will run as an independent veteran at some point. I know I'm always on you
It's
about
so
that.
hard. It's so hard.
It is. And that's why, if you want a case for why you need to support Independent Veterans America, it's because we need to make it less hard for people like Kristen. Because, Kristen, you should be in Congress or City Hall or a governor's mansion, because you're exactly the kind of leader that this country needs right now. And I'm grateful for your friendship. I love you. And happy Veterans Day, my friend.
Thanks, Paul. Happy Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day, everybody.
All right, folks, happy Veterans Day to everyone. We are daily now, so check us out. Hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or you're watching on YouTube. Lots of media hits throughout this week. I was on C-SPAN today. I was on WNYC's Brian Lair show, NPR. Thank you to Brian. Tonight, 8 o'clock, I'm going to be on News Nation with Chris Cuomo. Then later in the 8 o'clock hour, I'm going to be on CNN with Anderson Cooper. I also joined former Army Secretary Pat Murphy and Dan Coots on their Yahoo Finance show, Warrior Money. Check that out. I'll link to it. And the Grounded podcast with my friend Senator John Tester of Montana, who used to chair the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. I joined him on his podcast out of Montana this week. All these will be linked at independentamericans.us and on our website and on our YouTube page, of course. Tomorrow, we're going to continue a focus on Veterans Week in a different way. The great Henry Rollins is coming back. I'm so excited. He hasn't been on in a long time. I think he is our most watched and most listened to episode in the history of this show. So Henry Rollins is going to bring the unique Henry Rollins brand, attitude, patriotism to Independent Americans. Get ready for that. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Subscribe, join our Patreon committee, get the merch, and know that maybe Veterans Day is a good example of how we can come together like we do on this show every day and have been for so many years. And especially if you feel disconnected, if you feel homeless, this can be your community, just like a Veterans Day parade can be, because our independent movement is providing hope for the future. Country over party, people over politics, light over heat. And that movement is growing. You're seeing it, especially around times like Veterans Day. And I hope you enjoyed this episode with Kristen Rouse. Please support her work, follow her, and share it far and wide, and invite others to declare their independence. Because Veterans Day is a good reminder that it's not about party, it's about country, community, and leadership first. So if you're still not declared as an independent, maybe today is a good day to do it. You can celebrate your Veterans Day by declaring your independence and giving a middle finger to both parties. And stay vigilant, my friends, especially my fellow veterans, because eternal vigilance is the price of freedom, and hope is the oxygen of democracy. And veterans embody that hope every single day. Know you're not alone in your vigilance. We're all vigilant, and we're all in this together. Stay vigilant, America. And happy Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day to all of you. Love y'all. See you tomorrow.
Powered by Righteous Media.